Hello, my name is Fern Haler, and today I will be presenting you a PowerPoint on the welfare concerns of greyhound racing in Australia. Contents of this PowerPoint presentation on greyhound racing. First, the history of greyhound racing, then modern day greyhound racing, and then looking into the welfare concerns that are injuries, wastage, drug usage, and surgical artificial insemination. And after the welfare concerns, we'll be looking at the alternatives of these welfare concerns, and then the summary of this PowerPoint and the references of the sources used for this PowerPoint. History and introduction of greyhound racing in Australia. Greyhounds were brought to Australia with the first fleet, intended to use them for their ability to catch live game. Due to their build and gait capabilities, coursing began in the 1860s, where greyhounds would chase live bait such as wallabies. This later changed to live hares, where it was then promoted as a sport where people would pay to watch and bet on the coursing events. In the 1920s, dog racing was introduced by Owen Smith, where greyhounds started racing on a track in the United States. As it gained more popularity, the tracks were modified, where the dogs were placed in boxes at the start and artificial lures were used instead of live bait. As the industry grew in the United States, other countries followed suit. The United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, Mexico and China involved themselves in the industry in the late 1920s. Australia now has one of the largest greyhound racing industries in the 21st century, with 65 greyhound racetracks across New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, West Australia, South Australia, Tasmania and the Australian Capital Territory, where the national turnover in Australia 2021 to 2022 was 10.65 billion, which was a record high. Modern day greyhound racing in Australia. In modern day greyhound racing, it is a competitive gambling sport where bets are placed on dogs, specifically greyhounds. Today, greyhounds start in a box that holds up to 8 greyhounds. Then they are released chasing an artificial lure that is conducted in an oval circular track, where the races often only last 30 seconds. The welfare concerns in greyhound racing. Due to the popularity of greyhound racing in Australia, there have been increased concerns about the welfare of greyhounds in racing. The main concerns that are raised within the industry are the injuries caused by the races and the rates of the injuries, wastage, the use of prohibited substances, and surgical artificial insemination procedures that are used for breeding. Injuries that greyhounds suffer during the races is one of the main welfare concerns discussed within the media. This is because greyhounds can suffer from catastrophic injuries caused by the races that have not been seen in ordinary domestic dogs. Injuries can be caused by the surface type, improper track maintenance of the surface type, and track type, where circular oval tracks cause collisions on the bends that lead to injury. Common injuries are fractures, for example hook fracture, left wrist fracture, fractured elbow and tarsal fractures. Other injuries seen in greyhounds is hypoxic fits and acidosis. These are significant welfare concerns as they are known to cause significant pain, discomfort and possible death. Firstly, looking at the right hook fractures, this is the most common career-ending injury and are very common on sand surface types. Fractures cause severe pain in greyhounds due to severe swelling, bruising and deformation, causing severe lameness. Fracture or dislocation of the central tarsal is caused by the forces and rotation of the bend as they turn at speed. Acidosis is caused by a buildup of lactic acid in anemic or dehydrated greyhounds that are not fit to race. This causes swelling in the back line and hind limb muscles. Acidosis is painful in greyhounds as the muscle cells swell and rupture, causing severe muscle damage, where dogs can show significant signs of discomfort with panting and barking. Hypoxic fits is a seizure that can commonly lead to death. Greyhounds can suffer due to the physical overexertion during a race that cause hypoxic fits due to a lack of oxygen, often collapsing, later dying in the catching pen. Key data of injuries from 2023 races in New South Wales. The Greyhound Welfare and Integrity Commission have published data quarterly every year since 2018 on trends and causes of injuries These tables contain recent race statistics of greyhound injuries from minor to catastrophic in New South Wales from January until September. During the first quarter, which runs from the 1st of January to the 31st of March, shows that the individual greyhounds raced were 4,344, with 983 greyhounds sustaining injuries. This means that 23% of greyhounds were injured between January and March. Next, the second quarter, which runs from the 1st of April to the 30th of June, states that the individual greyhounds raced were 4,655, a slight increase in greyhounds used, with the greyhounds sustaining injuries being 1,048, also increasing. However, the percentage of injuries staying the same at 23%. Finally, the third quarter, from the 1st to the 30th of September, where 4,759 individual greyhounds raced, with a total number of greyhounds injured being 1,066, with the percentage being 22% of greyhounds injured, 1% difference between the first and middle quarters. From these three tables, it is clear to see that the percentage of greyhounds raced and the greyhounds sustaining injuries ratio stayed the same in each quarter. The total number of greyhounds used from the first quarter to the third quarter was 13,758, and the total number of greyhounds injured was 3,097, with the total percentage of greyhounds injured being 23%. These graphs provided by the Greyhound Welfare and Integrity Commission from New South Wales do not state whether the greyhounds individually raced sustained a minor injury and then went on to sustain a significant injury in a different quarter. So these statistics given are assumptions that each statistic is a different greyhound. Although this is not most greyhounds injured, it is still a significant number of greyhounds sustaining injuries. Severe injuries and death. In these three tables provided by the Greyhound Welfare and Integrity Commission, there are categories, Category E being euthanasia and sudden death, and Category F being serious injuries, also showing that injuries and sudden death can be caused by different factors. These are greyhound factors that include nutrition, genetics, race form, physical growth, and previous injury history. Race factors are race distance, collisions, and number of greyhounds used in a race, and track factors being design, surface type, and environmental factors. It can be seen from the three tables that on average, race factors are the leading cause of severe injury and euthanasia in greyhounds, as collisions on the bend can cause the most damage. This could be due to their speed reaching 40 miles per hour, and when greyhounds reach a bend, they are likely to expand or slow down, which can lead to a collision. Along with possible factors that tracks are not standardized within the industry. Therefore, greyhounds do not get used to a specific trajectory, therefore increasing risks of collisions. Factors increasing the risk of injury. Greyhounds sustain injuries that are rarely seen in other domestic dog breeds. This is because injuries are mostly musculoskeletal and take part in locomotion and rapid acceleration. Racetrack surface is believed to be one of the main factors contributing to the injuries in greyhounds. In an ideal setting, a track surface should absorb the impact forces of the foot, providing traction for a controlled gallop and efficient use of energy. Any inconsistency of the track surface is dangerous and can cause an injury. Sandy loam track surface is the most common surface type, as sand retains moisture and provides grip. Providing enough water provides surface tension. Uneven watering allows for soft spots and opening for injuries. It is important to provide proper track maintenance, as things like weather can affect track surface, therefore also increasing the risk of injuries, as greyhounds are not capable of adjusting their gait based on the changing of surface conditions. At the beginning of a race, greyhounds accelerate at great speeds. When they encounter the first bend, they're subjected to great forces and are forced to change direction, and often bend towards the inner rail to counter the force, and keep their speed while following the lure. As the lure is on the inside of the track, greyhounds often lean towards the inside, where their joints are subjected to horizontal strain, where they are likely to sustain an injury. Wastage of greyhounds. Wastage is a term used within the greyhound racing industry for dogs that are unsuitable to race. This could be due to injuries, being too slow to compete, too old or untrainable, and because of this, they end up being euthanized. The greyhound industry have been known to produce and dispose of dogs annually, where the records have shown that 13,000 to 17,000 dogs have been disposed of due to overbreeding, retirement, being too slow, or being surplus requirements. It's difficult to obtain actual numbers as the monitoring of the disposal of greyhounds is minute due to the disappearance of dogs every year. Adoption agencies were implemented to actually combat wastage within the industry due to the overbreeding injuries in retired dogs. However, recently the rehoming process of greyhounds has flatlined according to the Coalition of Protecting Greyhounds, as overbreeding is still prominent, with greyhound adoption programs not having the capability to hold and their ability to rehome them. Could it be seen that the greyhound industry uses adoption programs as a way out of overbreeding? That adoption programs are an acceptable byproduct of the greyhound racing industry. Drug usage, prohibited substances. The use of prohibited substances is still apparent in Australia. The presence of prohibited substances raising significant concerns from both welfare and integrity standpoints, as experts have determined that they have no rightful place within the sport. These substances, classified as permanently prohibited substances, must never be detected in a greyhound system, whether during competition or outside of it. Due to their grave implications for the integrity of the sport, participants are strictly forbidden from possessing, acquiring, attempting to acquire, administer or attempt to administer any permanently banned substances at any point in time. For instance, substances like EPO, growth hormone, and anabolic androgenic steroids fall under the category of permanently banned prohibited substances. If a trainer were to procure, possess, administer or allow the administration of such substances to a greyhound, it would constitute a violation of this rule, irrespective of whether a veterinarian had prescribed the substance for the greyhound. These substances have been easily deemed inappropriate for greyhound racing, emphasising the severity of the prohibition. In Queensland, Greyhound Racing Integrity Commission release every steward's inquiry and panel decisions. From January 2023 to February 2024, there have been 27 inquiries of trainers using prohibited substances. The most common prohibited substances used are hydrochlorothiazide, which can cause skin rash, racing heartbeat, diarrhea, vomiting and seizures; hydrocortisone, which mainly causes skin reactions, for example fragile skin, and can possibly lead to hormone suppression; cobalt, which can temporarily improve performance, however too much cobalt has detrimental effects on the heartbeat and their blood system; arsenic. Long-term exposure to arsenic leads to weight loss and nerve damage, but short-term effects range from stomach pain, blisters, to then causing the greyhound to collapse or even death. And caffeine. Greyhounds may experience panting, vomiting, abnormal heart rhythm and seizures within 1 to 3 hours of caffeine ingestion. These substances are known to enhance performance and can also mask pain from injuries. Most of the inquiries occurred after the race with a post-race urine sample, meaning many of the greyhounds still race with the prohibited substances, with some of the greyhounds winning the race. After a prohibited substance is found, a court trial will occur, with the trainers often pleading guilty. However, the prosecution is often a fine of 1,000 to 2,000 Australian dollars, with no suspension or race ban. Even though authorities ban the use of prohibited substances, the use is still high. This could be because of the irregular checks of the pre- and post-race sampling, along with the prosecutions not being too harsh, making the trainers take that risk with using prohibited substances. Surgical artificial insemination. Surgical artificial insemination is one of the most used breeding techniques in Australia, with 80% of breeders using this technique. This procedure is seen as highly invasive as it requires general anaesthetic for the female greyhound. During the procedure, an incision is made into the abdomen, where then the uterus is identified and taken out of the greyhound's body, where the frozen semen is equally injected into both of the female uterine horns, where the uterine is then placed back into the abdomen with the incision stitched back up. This surgical procedure causes great risks to the greyhound, as they are much more susceptible to issues caused by general anaesthesia. Greyhounds have a low fat to muscle ratio, which means they are more susceptible to suffer from hypothermia during surgery. And greyhounds' liver metabolism is different to other dog breeds, which means they have a prolonged poor recovery time from anaesthesia. Alternatives. Although greyhound racing commissions in Australia are using integrity to improve the welfare of greyhounds, there are further steps needed to fully improve the welfare for greyhounds. The further alternatives are more use of straight tracks to reduce the likelihood of injuries caused by the bend, optimal surface track composition to better support greyhound's body, the positioning of the lure on the track to avoid grouping, safety padding around the track to provide extra safety from the greyhounds spread out at the bends, more unannounced inspections of housing and prohibited substance use, along with harsher fines with raised suspensions and bans, and the alternatives to surgical AI that is transcervical insemination, as it is a less invasive procedure that doesn't require surgery with general anesthetic, as it is painless and often takes 15 to 30 minutes. Summary of the greyhound racing industry in Australia. Throughout this PowerPoint it has been shown that Australia's main effort is their integrity within the industry. However, the welfare of greyhounds needs to be improved in order to gain the public favour, as many greyhounds are still injured and are euthanised every year due to the unimproved racetracks and overbreeding. Therefore, further changes are required to gain more public favour and for the public to campaign more for the alternatives due to the greyhound racing industry bringing in too much money to cause state bans. Thank you very much for listening to my PowerPoint. Please take a few moments to view my references on the next slides.